Welcome back to the Wizard Shop. You guys have been seeing this Lotus Esprit Turbo sitting over in the corner for a while, and now it's time to get started on it. The suspected issue with this car is a blown head gasket. I'm getting ready to show you guys how I find out the definitive answers right after this. So before we get started, let's talk about what happened when he was driving it. He mentioned that he was driving it, it started running really rough, as if it started to misfire, and he could look in his rearview mirror or side mirrors and see smoke coming out of the tailpipes in a perfect smoke rings, kind of like the guys who can smoke cigarettes and blow perfect smoke rings. That's what he saw, perfect smoke rings, and they were white smoke rings coming out the back. He was pretty sure that it was a head gaskets blown on this thing. And we're going to find out today exactly if that's true or not. I suspect that it is. But before we tear anything apart, you want to see for sure that that's what it is. One of the first things I did is use my handy dandy Mighty Vac cooling system pressure tester. It comes with multiple different caps to fit on a coolant reservoir or a radiator, and you hand pump pressure up to 10-15 psi and check for leaks. And as you can see on the reservoir here, I have a yellow adapter, cap adapter. I'll just plug this in and pump it up. I've already done that, and the first thing I noticed was that I had antifreeze coming out of the tailpipe. Let's take a look at that. As you can see inside the tailpipe, there's fresh green antifreeze that has trickled down. It dripped a little on the floor. It took quite a while for it to do that, but that's pretty sure sign of a head gasket to me, but we still don't know for sure. Let's do some more testing. So like I said, I've already tested this cooling system with this pressure tester. You just pump it up until you get to the desired PSI, and you let it set for a while. And then you inspect for leaks. It's pretty simple to use. It just hooks right on like this. You pump it up. I've got some hoses undone on here already. I don't want to spray myself in the face with coolant, but so it's easy to say by looking at the tailpipe that we just saw, oh, well, yeah, it's a blown head gasket, but we don't know that. What if it's a cracked head? What if it's a cracked block? What if it's some issue like that going on? We don't know that for sure. So you're like, well, what do you do? Tear the head off? No, not yet. That's where this handy Borescope camera comes into play, and we're going to show you guys how to use that. One of the first things you do is take all the spark plugs out, all 4 of them. I've done all that already. But after you remove them, you now have access to the cylinders. And that's where you can turn on this little tool. And you can see me. There I am. And as you can see my face. Through this tiny little tip on this, what's called a Borescope camera, you can look through a small hole and see into areas where you normally would have to tear apart the engine to find out what's going on. All 4 spark plugs sit in the center of the cylinder head with 4 individual holes right in this valley. I've got all 4 spark plugs out. So the first thing we're going to do is try cylinder number 1 with our handy dandy Borescope camera. All you do is insert it into the spark plug hole. There's the threads of the spark plug hole as we're going in. And we look inside the cylinder and we see that there's normal, it's kind of oily, which is to be expected in here, but there's no antifreeze. So that cylinder number 1 is a clean cylinder. Let's try number 2. Again, just the top of a piston. It's clean in there, guys. Nice and clean all the way around. Pretty cool tool, huh? Let's try cylinder number 3. Again, a little bit oily in there, but there's no antifreeze. Now let's try cylinder number 4. Ta-da! There's green, like a nice puddle of green antifreeze sitting in there. There's our problem. So we see coolant in cylinder number 4. How did it get there? It's easy to say, oh, that's easy, it's a blown head gasket. Well, we still don't know if it's a cracked head or a cracked block. When I had everything assembled still, I pressure tested the cooling system with this little camera that we just used. I was able to see right through the head gasket dripping coolant in. I verified with that camera, absolutely, it's coming from the head gasket. I saw it visually with the camera. So it's not a cracked block, it's not a cracked head. So that means for sure we're going to be taking the cylinder head off and seeing exactly what happened. But we now know it's worthwhile to pull the cylinder head because it's a cylinder head gasket that has blown. Some of the other things, I want to show you a couple other things you can do with this camera to verify that there's not something else leaking coolant. Let me show you something else that has coolant in it that could be the culprit. So I've taken stuff apart so I can test it. This is called the charge air cooler. It sits right here. It cools the air that's going from the turbo and into the engine. When you compress air, it gets hot. And one way you can cool it down is with the charge air cooler. And guess what they use to cool it? Antifreeze. It's very possible that antifreeze could be leaking out of this thing and right into the cylinders. One of the first things that I did was pull this off, and with my Borescope camera, I looked down inside both ends. You can see it looks like little radiator fins inside of there. And basically what it is. So when I pulled this apart, I looked inside to see if there's any antifreeze present, and there wasn't. It was dry as a bone. No antifreeze in the charge air cooler. The last thing that you can do if you want to double check yourself to make sure coolant's not getting in through the intake or some other way. And this was one of the issues that the owner was concerned about, that he went on a chat room or a forum or whatever, and there's guys in there. Some of them are very knowledgeable, a few are. Usually it's backyard mechanics that maybe been working on it for 6 months, and they're going to tell you how to fix your car. And I've been doing this for 18 years. But there was concerns that there would be coolant in the intake getting into the cylinders. To confirm to him and make him feel comfortable with what I'm doing, I went ahead and took the injectors out. Here's the fuel rail with the injectors. They sit right in here. And I removed the entire rail and set it aside. And what that does, it gives us 4 individual holes where the injectors used to sit. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we have an open view to the intake port on the cylinder head. We can take our handy dandy camera again, and we can go through the back side of the cylinder head port on every, look at there. Both intake valves. We're looking right where the intake bolts to the head. That's exactly where we're at. We were able to gain access to this by removing the injectors. This angle that we're looking at here is the angle of spray. This is where the injector sprays the fuel, right exactly where we're looking. But as you can see on cylinder number 1, dry, no antifreeze. So I went to cylinder number 2, dry. Nice and clean in there, nice and dry. Number 3, clean and dry. And number 4, same story. Nice and clean and dry. So with that information, I can now contact the owner of this car, and I actually sent him clips of what I just showed you, and I can confirm with confidence there's no coolant anywhere in the intake system at all. We started from the turbo, went to the charge air cooler, I looked at the plenum, then I looked in the intake. It's dry. all along the way. You take that, also with the footage that I had of actually seeing the coolant leaking from the head gasket. We now have a confirmed failure, exactly what's wrong with this car. And based on that, then we can move forward with getting an estimate together and actually taking the cylinder head off. So those are some of the steps and some of the things that I do when I work on exotic cars or supercars that my customers really enjoy. It's not like, here's my car, and I show up a few weeks later with a big bill. And what happened in between the dropping off the car and picking up the car is anyone's guess. That's not how I operate here. I send photos and I photo document all along the way. This is what I found. You can see it for yourself. This is what my plan of action is. And then I get an okay from the customer to move forward. And the next step we're going to do is pull the cylinder head. I'm going to actually do that in the car. You can remove the engine on these through the top and tear it all down, but from a lot of information that I've researched, you really don't want to pull the motor unless you absolutely have to. And I don't have to on this one. If I have to remove the engine, I have to take this cross beam out. I have to take off the shifter linkage. I have to take off a whole lot. The CV shaft, the axle assemblies, I guess. There's roll pins that have to be knocked out that are glued in. Yes, they're glued in for sealing. That's how they're sealed. I will be able to just remove the intake and accessories and things of that nature and just move it out of the way and take the cylinder head off right here. And then we'll know how far we need to go. I'll check the cylinder head for flatness if it needs to be machined. It didn't get overheated, luckily. The guy that owns this car is pretty knowledgeable about cars, and when he had the issue, he immediately pulled over and turned it off and got a wrecker. So I can know with confidence that it didn't get overheated. The next step, and I will do some more video of this along the way as we get the cylinder head off and some of the revealing of what we found and how bad it was blown and what caused it to blow. So I thought you guys might enjoy following along with the diagnosis of this and see how I come about my confirmed answers. What the customer is looking for is confirmation of what's wrong. He's not looking for a rolling of the dice. He's not looking for a shot in the dark, or I hope it's this. Let's just buy the parts and let's hope that it fixes it. There's a lot of shops like that out there, guys. Or I say, yeah, it's just this or that, and we get it apart and find out, oh, it's a lot worse than we thought it was. I like to find out the answers and have documented photo proof of everything that I saw. I present it to the customer, and the customer makes a decision. Be looking for into the future some more videos on this Lotus. This is kind of a winter project for me. I don't think it's going to take all winter long, but cars like this, I don't focus on this car every day until it's done. The customers understand that come in here with these cars that I'll take care of my day-to-day customers, and when they're done and out, then I get back on this car. That's how I operate on these cars. Some of you guys say, oh, that car's been in there a long time. Well, yeah, it has, because I don't focus on these types of cars 100% every day, every hour until it's done. I don't do that. And in doing so, when the customer's patient with me, I'm able to save them quite a bit of money of taking it to some other shop or a dealership especially. So I can do these jobs, I can get them done really fast and charge them what it's worth. But if the customer's patient with me, I usually cut a little bit of a break. Say, you know, this job, this and X amount of $1,000, I'll save you a couple $100 since you were patient with me. They get a thorough job, it's done right, it's done properly, and they save a little cash in the end. And my day-to-day customers stay happy because they don't get told on the phone, I'm in the middle of a Lotus job, you're going to have to wait for an oil change or a set of brakes or an alternator. They're like, well, the job's only will take an hour, can't you just squeeze it in? Oh, no, I'm in the middle of a Lotus job. That's not how I operate. I take care of my day-to-day customers, then I get back right onto these jobs. So I've had a few tools I used here will be on my Amazon affiliates page. There's also a lot of tools, all the tools I use on my Amazon affiliates page. If you're interested in checking it out, you can purchase them through there. We also have shirts and hoodies and coffee mugs and things for sale also. And just like I said that there will be doing more videos on this, there'll be many more other cool wizard videos to come. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the diagnosis.